Alright, HHR owners, welcome to my channel. So here is it's the start of the project for you all, but for me I've been hard at work for quite a while already, but we'll go through what I've done so far and what I intend to do with my 2008 HHR SS. Formerly 2-liter turbo, front wheel drive. It's going to end up being an LC9 5.3 all aluminum LS engine, 4L60 trans, rear wheel drive using Corvette 1993 front and rear suspensions. Now that is no small challenge. Basically, if you're going to entertain an LS swap on your HHR, you're pretty much looking at converting a front wheel drive design car into a rear wheel drive design car. At least that's the way I've done it. There may be, obviously using stock suspension would save you a lot of effort. It's not something I really wanted to do, considering SS parts are getting harder and harder to find out there. My choice for Corvette, the HHR is a little bit of a street rod in my opinion, so you know that's what street rodders do. So I've been at work at this for probably about 6 months. And as I said before, no small feat. Just a guy working in a garage, you know, have a looky-loo, let me know your opinions, your thoughts, but in my opinion, this made sense to me. So that's what we're going to do when it's our car in our garage. I'll run you through a lot of the details that may or may not apply to your project. I wish you nothing but luck if you try to start something like this yourself. Hopefully this just shows you all that it is possible. And again, it's only the start. Things will start happening fairly fast now because, you know, essentially the front of the car is pretty much ready for assembly. It'll all have to get torn apart, obviously, for final paint and a little bit of body work. There's not a whole lot to do inside the engine bay. It came out pretty well. But I'll share some of my struggles along the way, because you really have to be a good problem solver. Everything that I have started or looked at has been an act of problem solving. So if there's a will, there's a way. I'll put it that way. But every step of the way, this has fought me, mostly because I'm dealing with an HHR that is I would call it a cab forward design. Basically, when we get into the car, you'll see like the front wheel wells basically intrude on the interior. And by me going with Corvette suspension, that's an entirely different laid out car. Basically, the entire motor sits behind what I would say the center line of the front axle, if that makes sense. So your harmonic balancer would actually be just behind the front axle, your steering in front of that. Whereas the HHR, the 2-liter turbo, actually that engine sits forward of the center line of the axle, and the steering is behind the engine underneath the firewall. So absolutely no way you can keep the stock steering in the stock location, you know, if you're going to be going rear wheel drive with a rear wheel drive transmission. So no matter what you do, other guys have, you know, this isn't the first of its kind, maybe with Corvette suspension, but other builders have, you know, put little glimpses of what they've done out there, but not really detailed much. So this may help you, this may not help you, but as I said, this is what makes sense to me. We'll walk up, we'll have a look at the car. We'll start with the front subframe. Again, 93 Corvette. I am using, if we have a look here, basically the front of the HHR subframe, the 93 Corvette cross member, rear supports that you'll see when we bolt the engine into the car, how that all works out. This is actually the stock manual rack electric power steering for the HHR. Try as I might, I could not get the hydraulic power rack from the Corvette, which came with my entire suspension, to work. The motor was just too high no matter what I did. So by using the HHR and it being a manual rack, it's relatively slender. I'm able to mount it down. I had to notch the Corvette subframe to get everything mounted. My steering is basically pointed straight back. You'll see when we bolt that together how the steering is all absolutely custom as well, but it clears everything. Motor mounts. As I went through this project, I've had to make these motor mounts 3 times, and I'm hoping this is the absolute last time. Actually, I know it's the last time because everything's already been fitted to the car. So basically what I've done for the Corvette is weld on some 3/16 plate steel. And the motor mount itself, we can see here, this is just the driver's side, is actually captured like this. 2 bolts in the front, 2 bolts in the rear, 3/16 steel. Mirror that for the other side. The only trick is that one thing that I did find out during my research is by using a Corvette independent rear suspension, the pinion is offset 3/4 of an inch to the passenger side of the car. So that will reflect in everything you will see here. The motor mounts are offset, the trans tunnel is offset, everything is offset for that 3/4 of an inch. Hopefully that works out. I haven't even started on the back of the car yet, but it should be fine. So that's basically just the cross member. The stock HHR cross member basically ends right here. And that's how it is in the Corvette. It's got front braces bolted to that location. Rear brace is roughly bolted in the back of the location. The motor mounts, this was, I guess, an LT1, being a 93 Corvette. It had just a flat motor mount back here, which absolutely wouldn't work. You can see how far I'm ahead of where that would have been. In no way will this bolt in like a Corvette engine unless you're going to be sitting in the back seat of the HHR. All right, coming to the car. One thing I really hope will help save you guys some time are these windshield wipers. I'm not gonna lie. The wife almost got Rain X on her side of the windshield. Making a passenger wiper work, if you can see how thin that really is, that's about 2 inches. How the firewall's been cut from this location all the way across to here. Now I was pretty generous because I wanted to be able to bolt any LS engine in this, and now's the time. So I've allowed myself 10 inches of manifold height, which should cover any supercharger, any tall intake, anything imaginable out there. And the width, you know, serviceability. I want to be able to take valve covers off this thing. I'm going to have floating coils over top of my valve covers, which you'll all see soon. So you really got to put some thought, some home engineering into what you want your project to be, but make it serviceable. Everything I have, including the subframe, is 100% bolt in. Okay, that's so I can work on this car down the road. Just gonna grab something here. We'll go back to the firewall. Actually, no, I'm going to finish up these windshield wipers because I'll tell you, that was 3 days of my life figuring this out, and I hated myself. So, removing this from the car, we can see how much room I have there for the tunnel. It's ugly, it's just seam sealer, the welds aren't so bad. But minimize the room for the passenger side wiper arm. Originally, this wiper, I'll just throw this back in here. Everything fits. Originally, the passenger wiper arm basically pointed straight down, about 4 inches into what you see here. And obviously the swinging of the arm is what makes the wiper move. Now, the problem that I had is I had to have my arm pointing up. There is room under the base of the windshield into the cowl to do that on the angle. But if you just do that, the driver's wiper and the passenger wiper would work opposite. So what I mean by opposite is the passenger would sweep this way, the driver's one would sweep that way. Now, parking positions and everything else would matter with the wipers. It was a huge struggle to figure this out. And as I said, the wife almost got Rain-X, because what I ended up doing here, if I pull this out, as I said, I had to get the wiper arm on the passenger side. The operation, you can just see the arm is pointed up underneath the cowl here. What I ended up doing, there was no way, because both wiper arms work off of the wiper motor, so you're taking like circular motion into a linear motion. So you would have two arms off this stud here. This wiper motor just spins round and round 360 degrees, and all the magic has to happen based off of that. Clearance wise, operation wise, as I said, the arms would be backwards. I ended up coming up with a plan where I've modified the driver's side to drive the driver's wiper normally, but I've welded a secondary arm up top. And the only way I could make this work, and actually I have tons of clearance doing it this way, cross my fingers, is the driver's wiper now drives the passenger wiper. So both arms are in the same direction. Driver's arm's driving the passenger, lots of clearance. Tested it, works great. So if that helps you guys, if you do any kind of cowl work, that's the first thing you're going to run into is these windshield wipers. Most guys might just rip them off the car. I don't know. This is a driver. I'm going to be driving this, so I want everything to work the best it can. I've also relocated the wiper motor. You can see the original location there. I've set it back. That's just for cowl clearance. And when we go and we put our cowl cover on, just grab that. Everything clears when it's bolted down. So you can maybe just see the wiper motor in there somewhere. Anyhow, all that's left to do on the cowl is this little notch here bugs me because I've modified the firewall. You can see it's kind of off center. So I'm just going to trim it back to match the angle over here. It's going to look a heck of a lot nicer. So getting back to the firewall, we got originally the HHR is pretty much a flat firewall. I'll try to insert a picture in here of what it looked like before. You can see there's angles, there's everything. Basically, I had the engine and the trans installed in the car. I built a frame, which I'll show you on the inside of the car, around everything, because this is a ginormous hole in the structure of the unibody. So what I put back, it's all 16 gauge steel, sheet metal, 1/8 of an inch angle iron. I think it's stronger than what it used to be, but you got to put something back for everything you take out. So because I've gone Corvette suspension, you can see these little covers here. That is what's left of my old strut towers, both sides, done the same. This bracket here is just something I had to make up because the windshield washer bottle, I'll just grab that quick. The windshield washer bottle just mounts in here, but it used to mount to the strut tower, so I had nothing there, so I just made a little bracket. One other thing I've done is, you can see the original studs here and here. I've actually moved this bottle back 2.5 inches. Reason I did that is because it was a big useless hole. So everything's nice, it clears the cowl. It's just going to allow me, future use, more space up front for whatever we might be doing. Getting into the other side. So if you get into this, first thing you're going to find is your heating and your air conditioning lines are going to go through the firewall right about here, right at the top of your bell housing, basically. So any kind of V8 rear wheel drive transmission, you're a better man than me if you can make the stock GM airbox, heater AC box work, because just where it enters and exits is in the way, period. So I've eliminated the stock GM box. I've gone with an aftermarket Restomod Air. It's going to be set up like a, like a 60s muscle car, street rod, whatever. I'm going to have all my AC and my heating lines are going to come out the passenger side like it would on a typical rear wheel drive car. So a little bit smaller unit, because the stock unit takes up all the room in the dash. There's like absolutely no room in the dash. We'll have a look in here. So there's the wheel wells in the car. Again, seam sealer. I went ugly because GM's ugly. You can see the stock GM seam sealer and what I've done. Again, it's a driver, but I had to make all this up. The floor for the trans tunnel has been sectioned. So basically looking here, down this seam, all the way in the back. The floor has been cut, it's been pulled back. What you can't see is where the trans tunnel curls up here, very small. I guess it's an exhaust tunnel on the HHR. Everything that I've fabricated basically bolts to that. One thing I ran into, these two holes here are actually my transmission mount, so I had to modify a little bit of the stock floor here just for the angle of the transmission brace. No biggie, works well. The mounts themselves, this is right through the frame rails on the bottom of the car. I've welded in steel tubes so I can't crush the frame when I tighten up those mounts. Back of the car, to be determined. Once I get the rear suspension, and this is relatively easy to mock up, but I'm not going to tackle that until I get the rear end in and sort out all the drive shaft angles and all that fun stuff. So coming in here, we can see this piece right here is actually part of the HHR stock firewall plate that I've cut out. Now it's been moved over. It used to be way over here. Again, no way to run a vacuum booster with an LS engine in a stock location. Guaranteed, you're a better man than me if you can pull that off. Steering I've had to relocate as well. That's not as severe, but it's more made for the Corvette suspension. Don't have to modify the dash, the steering, the anything else for that. The brakes, on the other hand, totally have to, basically a pedal that comes straight down is now going to have a little bit of a offset. Haven't done that part yet, but stay tuned. We'll show you how we do that. The air conditioning unit is going to sit over here. It doesn't use the, everybody with a wet floor and an HHR, there's your source right there. That's your fresh air intake. I've welded mine up, seam sealed it. There's no provision for fresh air on my aftermarket AC unit, so I don't need it, which means, my carpets will stay dry. That's just fine with me. So same thing on the passenger side, floor section, but again, everything is 3/4 of an inch shifted over to the passenger side. So she's rock solid, no fancy work. It doesn't really have to be, and you won't see any of this with the sound deadening and everything else that's going to go in here. So still have to make the electronic throttle body work, figure out a mount for that. It's actually a Cadillac unit. That's just what the EFI company recommended. I'm going with Aces. It's going to be an Aces Jackpot Pro LS system standalone. What else can I show you on the inside? I can't put seats in yet because the seats actually bolt right here, and there's a bar that goes all the way across to the other side, and that's what the rear seat mount attaches to. It also attaches to the plate that sat in here, but that's all going to get modified because of the height. That's going to become 2 pieces. You'll see that when we get into it. Other than that, so the tunnel itself has been, this is 1/4 inch thick steel. Again, anything you take out, it's been raised about, I would say about 2 inches for drive shaft clearance, which means all of my console, everything's going to have to get trimmed to fit into the stock dash. Hopefully that comes out looking sort of kind of OEM-ish. That's sort of my goal with the car. Hopefully it looks like GM built it. We'll see. But that's the inside. Lots of work to do. As I said, for you, it's the start of the project. For me, I've been at it for a while. Coming back to the firewall. Little details. I can show you what's stock here. Everything up to here is stock HHR. This plate here I had to make. There's actually an offset you can see to clear the brake booster in the master cylinder here. Everything's been moved over as far as I can to the right. Fabricated frame rails. Those are 3x5, 3/16 wall. Heavy duty. Shock mounts I've had to fab. Sway bar mounts in the bottom. You'll see all that all comes together. The whole car, anything structural. You know, I'm not just putting a bolt into 3/16 steel. This is actually a piece of 1/2 inch that's fully threaded through there. So we got lots of meat to bolt everything in. There's another bracket on this side, that triangular piece. You'll see what that is. That's part of my steering, something I had to do. This little plate here I had to make up because that's going to hold the ABS harness, which was removed. We'll come back in the wheel well here. The original frame rail on the passenger and the driver's side are actually different. So what I had to do, everything above this has been fabricated because I need room for upper A-arms. The stock frame, if we follow from this location right across up to here, would totally block the upper A-arms if you go Corvette. So again, recommend the stock suspension. I can't tell you about spring rates and small blocks and how all that's going to work out, but for me, I'm using a V8 suspension on a V8 car, so should be close. I've pretty much welded every factory spot welded seam in the front, reinforced the frame. This is mount 3/16. You know, some welds are pretty, but they're gonna hold. Just some seam sealer, again, do it ugly. But theoretically, not having strut towers, if I come inside here, you can see I didn't just cut out the strut towers. There's actually a support bar put in there. That's what you see underneath this plate. This is literally just a cover over that support bar just to keep some strength in the unibody. And passenger side, done exactly the same. Although again, the frame rails are different. So in this case, if you look at the stock HHR frame rail where it held the transmission mount, it actually curves up here, okay? If we come to the driver's side, that frame rail is flat, okay? It just went straight across flat this way. So the transmission mount was higher in the driver's side frame rail than the engine mount was. So you're dealing with 2 completely different frame rails. So I've actually modified it, you know, again, to clear my upper A-arms. I've mimicked the curve from the driver's side into the passenger side. And then basically everything is just mirrored. So the only thing stock is this part of the firewall here and up to the edge of that. That's all stock HHR. Everything else in here, well, I should say from here back is what I had to fabricate. So basically dealing with a stock car from about halfway through the engine bay forward. Reason I used the stock HHR front of the subframe, It's got the mounts for the radiator supports, and obviously that adds a lot of structure to the unibody, this support here. I would consider the Corvette cross member adding a lot more strength, because it was just a big Jeasley hole there. So that should be okay. Trans tunnel itself, bigger than it was, fabricated, got the ugly factory looking seam sealer on it. It's only done to the back of the tail shaft of the transmission, so more to come. Like I said, a little bit of body work on the firewall, make it nice. It's not too bad. But I'm not going to final paint anything just yet, because I've got everything else to fit, all the wiring. I got to fabricate brake lines. I got a fuse box. Like it's all going to get scratched up. So black epoxy primer is all she gets for now. Coming to the passenger side, very familiar to the driver's side. How I merged it into the frame. This is 3/16 steel overlapping, gusseted into my frame rail. Welded this side, welded the other side. All these pieces you got to make. Putting in the upper A-arm in here. This was, again, you have to be able to service this stuff. So if I grab a stock Corvette A-arm, which you can see here, this is the upper. This sucker's just gonna, hard to do holding the phone. Come. Take two. Come in here. Basically just goes in there. So this arm will actually bolt to the Corvette sub frame. The shock mount I had to fabricate, but that's your upper A-arm. We'll leave that there for now. I'll take it out. There we go. All right, so where the project basically started for me was these frame rails. And these grade 8 bolts they're not structural. It was just when I was setting my wheelbase, getting my front wheels where they should be in the front wheel well, this piece of angle was kind of my gauge for that, how to fit it. So it's been modified and trimmed to fit the Corvette subframe nice, and 3/8 grade 8 bolts there each side, and there's 2 M12 bolts that bolt on the other side of the frame rail. So as I said, there's like 12 bolts all in all. So, you know, frame wise is what it is. Same thing looking up, your brace up top. You know, I don't know if there's any pretty way to do it, but strength wise, we get underneath. This side is basically how the frame is done. Is the part you see here actually overlaps my frame rail, and then the frame rail overlaps the car on the bottom side, if you can see that over there. And then I've got, for my rear braces, I've got 3/16 plate here, all welded inside. I trust that it's not going anywhere. It might look a little scary to you all, but if I show you what the stock frame rails look like, and the 6 or 8 spot welds that held everything together, and the gauge of metal they used, it's like, yeah, this is built stout. So other than that, you know, it's kind of where we're at right now. So next step's going to be putting in the engine. She's a little dirty, but she's all sealed. As I said, LC9 all aluminum, 5.3 Corvette front accessories, sand and air compressor. For the AC, using a GM, I believe it's called the Motorsports oil pan. I'm not sure about that, but 4L60, she's just a cruiser. Gonna be fine. Other than that, stay tuned, guys. Got my brake booster all ready to go in there. Factory steering boot. That'll sit in here. I got to give it a little trim for the angle of it all here, but just cut off this one edge on this side here, and she'll be nice. So hopefully in the next week or two, we'll have all the suspension, all the engine, transmission, everything installed in the car, you know, because I want to get this thing as a roller. The only issue I have is, as nice as the Corvette suspension is, with the transverse leaf spring, the HHR doesn't weigh enough for me to actually connect the upper A-arm to the spindle. I've tried it. All I'm doing is lifting the car off the jack. It's just too light. So I need the engine and the transmission in the car, which means all of that's going to have to go on this and go in the car at one time. But that's fine. That's the way it's got to be. There's not a lot of room. Actually, there isn't enough room to really pull an LS engine out the top of these. Not unless you're really going to, you know, modify the whole cow. But something I chose not to do. I just wanted to go a little bit more factory looking. So hopefully you guys like it. Stay tuned. Should have another video in a week or two. And things are about to get racy. Thanks for watching.